Odds are, if you click this video, you're probably trying to find your niche or your market. And that's exactly what this book helps with, The Obvious Choice by Jonathan Goodman. If I had to summarize this book in one sentence, I'd say that Jonathan Goodman isn't selling you hype in this book. Instead, he's teaching you how thoughtful actions, trust, and clarity can drive your work and, as a result, your impact. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 5 main ideas I'm taking away from this book and a couple of quotes too. So let's get right into it. Trust builds in silence. Goodman writes in his book that trust builds in silence and breaks in noise. And damn, that's a pretty good lesson. He talks about in the book that nobody has a reason to trust you. You have to build it up consistently, step by step. And eventually it all reaches a tipping point where suddenly it explodes and breaks in noise. Suddenly you're everywhere. And honestly, that's a deep lesson, because sometimes when you're creating content or making blog posts or writing newsletters, you might feel like you're creating into a void, but maybe that's where all the work happens, where you're creating your brand, your image, and finally it explodes into something that you could have never thought of. So that's the first lesson I'm taking away. Trust builds in silence. Chaotic ambition versus true ambition. Jonathan Goodman in his book makes a case that there's 2 kinds of ambition. There's one that drains you and there's one that fuels you. He calls them chaotic and true. Chaotic ambition essentially means that you're being reactive. You're reacting to events and not thinking through them, and that becomes exhausting and that will drain you. The second is true ambition. True ambition is where you're thinking through actions, you're being patient and being critical about it. And that's where you actually get the fuel to continue going on. This part of the book taught me that burnout is not really a badge of honor. It's realistically something that's telling you you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're having chaotic ambition. You're just reacting. You're not thinking through it. That was a really important lesson for me to take from this book. The idea of chaotic ambition versus true ambition. People don't buy what you do. That's a really interesting point that he makes in this book, where he talks about the fact that people don't buy your credentials, they're buying into the fact that you can help them solve their problems. And that's quite an integral shift for me to make in my mind. And he also furthers this point with the idea of features versus benefits. Features are things that talk to the mind, they're logical. Benefits instead are things that talk to the heart. So he does this as an exercise where he says, add so that to a feature to make it a benefit. For example, this phone has a 50 megapixel camera so that you can capture your family pictures in even higher resolution and store them for a longer time. That becomes something that's a benefit. You're using your credentials to help solve someone's problems. If you just show up your credentials and don't do anything with them, it's not really that useful having this part of it. Monkey first principle. It sounds odd, but stick with me here. So the monkey first principle is a principle that was designed at Google, where you have monkeys and pedestals. The actual example is supposed to be making a monkey act out Shakespeare, but Jonathan Goodman changed it into juggling flaming sticks. And honestly, that's a much more fun image to have in your head. So he basically says that there's 2 options here. One is you build a pedestal, or the second is you teach the monkey to juggle those flaming sticks. And he says that most people often choose the pedestal because that's something that they know, something they know they can do. That's your credentials. You know that you can use them. But the thing is, without actually showcasing how it can help, which means in this case, making the monkey juggle the flaming sticks, it's not really useful having that pedestal without having this done first. The more you exclude, the more you attract. This was a very counterintuitive lesson for me, because when you think about creating on social media or creating for people, you tend to want to have everybody as your audience. But in this book, he makes the case that in reality, you should be excluding particular parts of the audience, because you can't become the obvious choice by yelling louder in an already noisy place. You have to find a quiet space where you can become the obvious choice. That was a very counterintuitive lesson for me, but once I actually understood it, it makes a lot of sense. And once you understand that, you see it in a lot of channels how they'll be all under one massive umbrella, but they found one quiet space underneath that umbrella to become the obvious choice for that particular group of people. And as a result, you find a bigger and more loyal audience for it too. That's a very integral lesson for me to understand, and now it's caused a whole shift in my mindset towards this as well. So now let's move on to a couple of quotes I really enjoyed in this book. It'll just be a montage of all the quotes and me reading them out, so you can skip ahead to the next section if you want to. Alright, so I'll just read out the quotes I really enjoyed from this book. So the first one is, you become the obvious choice by finding the quiet space, not yelling louder in an already noisy place. Life is an adventure, not a test. There are no correct answers in the back of the book. Failure is like a bee sting. The more it happens, the less afraid of it you become. Don't aim to be the best, aim to be the only one. This book helped me to breathe. It helped me to understand that just chasing the next trend might not be the best choice. He makes a case for chasing them as well, and a case against it. So he's pretty balanced in his viewpoints. But the best part about this book is that he doesn't sell you hype at all. He instead tells you frameworks, tools, and advice you can follow to actually find your niche and become the obvious choice there. So in case you're interested in checking this book out, I'll leave a couple of links down below. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.